Hi guys, so I posted a load of questions on Facebook the other day on the private group. So I wanted to do a little video because a couple of you were saying that you was feeling a bit kind of overwhelmed by the questions that were being asked. So the aim of the game here is to try and bring a little bit more clarity and a little bit more understanding about the food that we're eating. Okay. So and also trying to make it and put this scientific stuff into simple terms. So so yeah, I'm gonna kind of rattle through these questions so you get a bit of an understanding, and then you can put any questions or anything in the video underneath. Okay, so scientific question. It was like, what is a calorie? Well, we talk about calories all the time, and there's a specific definition of what a calorie is, but a lot of people don't kind of correlate the academic stuff alongside what's actually happening. So how do we process and how do we drag that energy out of the food? Well, that's part of our digestive process. Okay, so a calorie is technically the amount of energy that's required to raise the 1 litre of water by 1 degree Celsius. Now, that sounds a bit, like I say, scientific, a bit academic, but understanding that there's a specific number of calories in your food, and this is what's on the food labeling. What we're trying to get to is get to an understanding of, if I have this many calories, this is how full I feel, and that gives us a better vibe of what we're talking about. Okay, so it's easy to get into kind of unconscious eating and stuff like that. But when we're talking about understanding the calories that are in everything that we eat, it's trying to understand, well, what are the best ways of optimizing these calorie targets, and what are poor ways of smashing these calorie targets into oblivion. Because it is like there's a lot of calorie rich food out there that would make it really easy to absolutely ruin these calorie targets, but also not doing that with too much emotional content. Okay, so a calorie, like I say, is the amount of energy that's required to raise 1 litre of water by 1 degree Celsius. But how does that correlate to what's actually going on inside our bodies? Okay, so we need to have a little bit of an understanding about what's going on in our bodies to start with. Okay, now there's a thing called BMR. Okay, your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. Okay, it's how many calories you would burn if you stayed in bed all day. Okay, if you just stayed in bed all day, yeah, you did absolutely nothing, weirdly, yeah, you're still gonna burn calories. You're still gonna have to maintain your body. Okay, now so BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. Okay, it's how many calories you burn at rest. So, like I said, if you did nothing at all day, you just laid in bed, which sounds fantastic, we're still going to burn calories. We still need a certain amount of energy in order to do that, to maintain our body's composition. Okay, so for instance, your brain is only 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of your BMR, of your normal calorie intake. Okay, so this is why when you've got some like hard work, or you're having to think hard, or maybe you're studying or whatever, we can get into these. There's different brain processes that go on that tap into different micronutrients. But like I said, I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to throw too much at you. Okay, but when our brain's working, when our lungs are working, when our heart's working and pumping blood around the body, it takes a certain amount of energy in order to do that. Okay, so yeah, BMR is basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories that it takes to burn calories. Sorry, the amount of calories. You got me. Your BMR is the amount of calories it takes to maintain your normal body composition when you're at rest. Okay, so it's the minimum amount to maintain your body function. Okay, and like I said, a lot of this is to do with brain function as well. Okay, um, so what you'll find is that when you're hungry, when you haven't had a meal for a while, then that's when we can start getting a bit of kind of brain fog and that kind of thing. And if you're perpetually on in a calorie deficit and going lower than your BMR, then this is when it can have a massive knock on effect in your mood. This is why people get hangry. Okay, so yeah, like that anger that comes out when you're hungry is like your predatory instincts. You know that you need to hunt. You know you're wanting to maintain your body composition, and this is your body's way of going, give me some food. I'm going to get aggressive until I get my food, and then I'm happy again. So yeah, understanding this is a key component. I think Joe was doing some work this morning, finding out your BMRs and working out your calorie targets and that kind of thing. So each and every single person has their own calorie target that's tailored to their height, their weight, their age, and gender plays a part in this as well. So when prime example of this is say if you're having a family meal and you dish out your plates, does everyone get the same meal, or do you give a little bit less to the kids because they obviously don't need as much energy as the bigger adults? Does the guy get a bigger portion on his plate because he's generally guys burn more calories at rest, and they have a higher calorie output. So understanding portion control and linking that back to when you're dishing out your meals, then you'll go, right, okay, that's for you, that's for you, that's for you, because we have measured portions and it's not just flat standardized, everybody gets the same. Okay, so the next bit was understanding. So protein is probably the hardest micronutrient, the hardest macronutrient to get on board. Okay, protein is the macronutrient that's used for body repair. Okay, so it's used for muscle growth or muscle repair. And just because you're eating protein or having a protein shake or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to get bulky or anything. It's just part of your diet, and sometimes people need to supplement that because it's one of the hardest macronutrients to take on board. Carbs are your ready energy. They're simple carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen that are linked together into a chain that make up this your ready energy. Okay, your ready energy is things like pasta and rice and that kind of thing. That's going to fuel an immediate workout. Time of processing. Proteins sometimes need around 12 to 18 hours to go through your digestive system and get into your muscles. So this is why they say about having a magic window of an hour after training where your body's craving those nutrients, and you'll process those you'll process those nutrients a little bit more effectively. Um, where Because we're talking about, generally we're talking about calorie deficit, okay, so eating just under what we're required in order to lose a little bit of weight. One of the things that we sometimes reduce is our fiber intake. Now, with your fiber intake, what that means is it's like if you ate, I don't know, 100 calories of chocolate, it would be maybe a little bar like this, yeah? If you ate 100 calories of lettuce, you'd eat a big iceberg lettuce like this, yeah? So what we're talking about is the calorie density of the food that you're eating, and this comes down to the choices of how we make up these calorie targets. So when we're talking about fiber, what we're talking about is, this when we start getting into body functions and having these awkward conversations. Yes, everybody poos. That's what we're trying to do, is make up enough substance to allow this transit to happen through our digestive system. The more fiber you can have, the more you're going to bulk that food out in your digestive tract, so then you can drag more energy and more nutrients out of that same amount of food. Okay, so it's like if you've got like a gravy mix, yeah. If you've got a gravy mix and the gravy's a little bit thick, then you'd add a little bit more water, so then you can bulk it out a little bit, yeah. If you put a little bit of water in that water is essentially your fiber. So you're increasing the amount of you're increasing the volume without increasing your calorie intake. And this is the balance that you have to have in order to meet these targets. So coming back to what's happening inside our bodies, okay? I'm sure you've all had that rumbling stomach before, okay? That rumbling stomach is a substance it's a hormone that's released in your body. It's called ghrelin. Okay, so ghrelin is our hunger signal. Okay, I always kind of remember that one, like it's a ghrelin. Ghrelin is like a little gremlin in my stomach that's growling. That's saying feed me, feed me. It's that kind of thing that we're trying to understand, and this is our appetite. This is the signal that we get from our stomach and our digestive tract in order to say, right, okay, I need more food because I'm getting into this calorie deficit and I haven't had enough substance because there's a transit time between eating the food and getting that energy into our muscles, into our bodies. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about our appetite and the ghrelin in our digestive tract. One of the key ways that I manage this, I use caffeine. I use coffee. Okay, so coffee is a great appetite suppressant because it fools your mind into thinking that you've had some food and you've had something passing through your digestive tract that needs to be processed. However, because it's a liquid, it's getting into your system a little bit quicker. Your body's processing the caffeine, which gives you that little kind of stimulant, so you're a little bit more active. But it's a great way of, like I said, suppressing that appetite. caffeine will stay in your system for around 12 hours. So there's a half-life to caffeine. So if you have caffeine at 8 a.m., then that caffeine is going to be in your system until 8 p.m. That's the half-life of caffeine. So if you're having a coffee at 10, 11 a.m., then that's going to be in your, that's the half the amount of caffeine is going to be still in your system at 10 p.m. at night, which then can start having a knock-on effect with affecting sleep patterns and stuff like that when you find it difficult to sleep. So one of the ways that I help manage that is that I say that I don't have caffeine after 10 p.m. After 10 a.m. If I stop my caffeine at 10 a.m., then I know that caffeine is going to be essentially out of my system by 10 p.m. at night time, so then I can fall asleep a whole lot easier. But if I'm having a coffee in the afternoon, if I'm having a coffee in our afternoon slump, I'm going to get to circadian rhythm in a minute. We always go through that little slump just after dinner, and I have a coffee then I'm going to have 50% of that caffeine still in my system at 1 a.m. and then I'm affecting my sleep patterns. So that's why people will find it hard to go to sleep if they're having coffee too late in the day. And okay, this is a very generalized rule, because some people do have they get tolerant. You get tolerant to the caffeine. Okay, so when you build up a tolerance to the caffeine, this is why sometimes some people can have a coffee and it not affect them. Well, it still affects them to a certain degree, and it is still going to affect how deeply you sleep, because our workouts and our recovery are intrinsically linked. They're part of the same system. It's like your yin and yang. This is the balance between the two systems. So yes, you've got your workouts, but you also need that recovery. When we're talking recovery, that's 80-85% of that recovery is your sleep pattern and your nutrition. So if you're eating the wrong food and you're not getting enough sleep, then you're not going to recover as much, so therefore you can't work out as much, and then this is the balance in order to achieve your goals. So we'll touch on sleep, targeting sleep hours. There's a great book that I read by a guy called Matthew Walker. He said Why We Sleep. It's called Why We Sleep. And when we're talking about that, he said the amount of people that can get by and have no detrimental effect to their long-term health, that can survive on under 8 hours sleep, is less than 1%. Rounded to a whole figure, he would say it's a 0%. So no one can really survive on less than 8 hours sleep without any detrimental effects. So this, when I read this, it becomes a light bulb moment that there's a certain stubbornness that we like to get. As we get older, you like to think that your sleep patterns are more robust and you don't need as much sleep and that kind of thing, because we get into these cycles and we learn to accept grogginess. We learn to accept, oh, I have that afternoon slump. Oh yeah, well, I want to stay up and I want to watch my I want to binge on Netflix. We'll just watch one more episode and get dragged into that kind of a routine, because it's only 45 minutes, but then it starts having this knock-on effect. So this is what we're saying, that there has to be a balance, and with this balance between our workouts and our recovery protocols, this is what we're talking about. So putting more scientific words around it. We've got our sympathetic nervous system, which is where our workouts happen, and we've got our parasympathetic nervous system, where our recovery happens. The two are balanced, the two are intrinsically linked. And as I'm getting older, I'm recognizing that there's a certain stubbornness that you have when you're younger, that doesn't bode well as we get that little bit older. You understand that there's a balance, and this is why people say that athletes soften as they get older. No, they just get a little bit more smarter. You realize and understand that there's a knock-on effect. So it's all well and good going balls to the wall and grinding out and having these crazy hard workouts. But what's more effective is this minimal dose response on a long-term basis. So what do I mean by that? So a prime example is I'm sat in the squat rack. We've got the chin up bars here. If I ask someone to max out on their chin ups, they might hit 14, 15, maybe even 16. Yeah, that's a good score. However, through pushing themselves so hard in order to reach that max level where there's damage happening, they're going to pay for that over the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 days. In those 4 days, you're aching, you're damaged, your body's recovering. So if we'll say 16 is our max level, but then you don't work out for 3-4 days, and then you're still a little bit sore, and you're trying to get into it, and you start losing motivation. If I took someone and found out that they could do 16 chin-ups, and we said, right, okay, well, what we're going to do, we're not going to hit 16 every day, we're going to hit 6. But we're going to do 6 every day. I'm like, that's easy. It's minimal dose response to allow our bodies to adapt. So if I do 6 every day for those 4 days, even for those 3 days, yeah, I'm going to hit 6, 12, 18, 24. 6, 8, 12, 24. So by the end of that 4th day, I've done 24 chin-ups as opposed to the 16 I was talking about. I've done an extra 10. Yeah. If I do 6 chin-ups on those 4 days, I've increased it by 2. So this is what we're talking about in that if we build up that training volume, that it's not about having these crazy long sessions where you're doing like an hour's workout, or you do a 2-hour workout, 3-hour workout. There's a grind to that, but there's also a payoff, and we have to understand that balance. So we've kind of deviated off away from this nutritional talk, but it's understanding that this minimal dose response is probably the best way in order to achieve our goals. And we're looking for that 1% gain. We're looking for that 1% gain each and every single day. So over a longer timeline, what we've got is a distinct difference. The problem now is that we live in the instant generation. Everyone wants an instant download. Everyone wants results tomorrow, the next day, next week. Okay, even next week is too late, it's too long. I mean, I have to work for a full week. Are you kidding? No. That's what habits are about. And this is where we're talking about that 1% increase every single day, so we can start making step by step improvement. So this is why, taking it back to the sleep patterns, when we start talking about our recovery protocols and stuff like that, that's where we need to be at. So generally, people have an alarm clock to get them up on the morning. Okay. Um, One of the best ways to modulate and regulate your sleep patterns is to have a nighttime alarm as well. Setting a, if it, so what we have to do is create sleep opportunity. Okay, because obviously we all know that you get in bed, you don't fall asleep straight away. There's that kind of 10 minute as we start to calm down and slow our pace down. We get into the habit of like I said, not falling asleep straight away. So we have to create sleep opportunity and managing for that. So one of the things that you can do to improve your sleep patterns is set a going to bed time. As crazy as it sounds, I know a lot of you have got kids and stuff already, so you'll have a nighttime routine for them. It's the same for you as an adult. The thing is that we get a little bit arrogant, we get a little bit cocky, we learn to get away with a late night. But then as we start getting older, it's like chipping away at our resilience. But that's how you're going to stay fitter and stronger, by keeping this protocol. And this is what we're talking about. Circadian rhythm is how our bodies react and go through a daily 24-hour cycle. So if we were left with, if we took all watches away, all clocks, all ways of monitoring time, we'd fall into a routine where we drop into our environment. When I say dropping into our environment, we have certain hormones that are released into our system through daylight. So we become one with our environment. And it's almost meditative. It's almost at a point where we learn to, our bodies react to the environment that we're in. And this is one of the ways that we can regulate and monitor our sleep patterns. So there's a reason why it's called midnight. It should be the middle of the night. That midnight isn't your going to bed time. We have different styles of sleep. Like I'm not going to go on and on about this because I don't want to make this too long a video. But we have early risers, we have the night owls, we have the early risers and stuff like that. Essentially, our bodies are still in the mode of being these pack animals from a like caveman era. We're always monitoring for potential threats that are around us. So for those of you that wake up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, then it's embracing and understanding that that's a normal function, just to check that there's no predators around when we're living in our cave in caveman times. Once you learn to accept that, you stop distracting yourself by going, oh, I've woken up, right? Oh, I'll get on my phone, or I'll scroll. Oh, now I'm awake and it's 6 o'clock and I have to be up in an hour anyway. You've been dragged into that by this 21st century world where we've got this 24-hour stimulation. So, like I said, I'm guilty of this as well. And one of the things is understanding our habits and understanding how our bodies are supposed to function, regulated with daylight times, and bringing our bodies into sync. I think that's enough for now. Like I said, I don't want to flood you with too much information, but it was just to instigate the conversation, to understand that how our bodies work from a biological perspective, from a nutritional perspective, and understanding this balance between our sympathetic nerve system and sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve systems, and our digestion. And then when you understand how you fuel yourself on top of that, it makes it easier to make smarter choices for what's calorie dense, what's nutritionally dense, where have I got the fibre, how am I going to allow this transit to happen, am I drinking enough water, and this is how we're trying to get to that kind of midpoint and that balance point between these extremes on all these different sides. And this kind of brings us back to that sacred geometry idea, but I'm not going to get into that one again just yet. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this little talk. I'll put this up on YouTube in a bit. If you've got any questions, you can put it in the links below, and we'll take it from there. Hope it's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.